Yeah, I've only not done it twice.
No, kudos to you. I was just thinking, I'm like, good for you. I always think about it, but I never do anything. So thank you.
All right. So this week's lecture and readings focus public leadership in a crisis. Please discuss ways that you believe organizations can prepare leaders at all levels to respond to any crisis. Consider the discussion of communications issues faced by BP in the spill and failures of crisis communications. Man, I think ultimately in the end, I think it's listening, if making sure you're doing your regular checks, inspections, to make sure that you're all fine-tuned and it's still flowing. Even though things are not going wrong does not mean something's going to happen. I kind of will relate it to what's going on here in Northern California in Oroville. Have you guys heard about that? What's going on in Oroville Dam?
Oh, yes.
Down in Southern California, that's where you get some of your water is
Yep.
from that area. And well, they have known of issues going on with that dam and not being functional. And they've kind of put it off because, they've kind of just fallen lines with the weather change and all that there was no need for it. And then we get hit with this hard winter weather. And now, they've had to evacuate 200,000 people because they're afraid of this dam completely,
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
And but they have had come and done inspections, but not thorough inspections. They have looked at this from a distance and said, "Oh yeah, this is structurally sound and this and that." To come to find out, there's a lot of issues that are going on that could have been done if they would have done a thorough inspection and just invested the money to take care of it. Because I guess they had recommendations to pour concrete and all that initially, and now they've created this huge old crater. Since they've not addressed it, and now it's going to cost them. They were saying up to $100 to $200 million.
And that's like so much more than if they would have just done the inspections when they were supposed to carry out the stuff that they found in the inspections.
Oh yeah, and so that goes back to my point. If you're doing your inspections, if you're listening to what, and you're being thorough and you're being proactive, then you won't run into these issues. I mean, you could still have accidents, but they won't be as significant, I guess, because you'll be better prepared for them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do have like the BP, when you do have a crisis that comes about, to be up front, to get in front of it, don't diminish it, don't try to brush it under, attack it head on, take your lumps, and try the healing process as fast as you can. You know what I'm saying? And make sure that you're gathering, not necessarily to hurry up and get all the information out of there, but make sure you're being precise and you're allowing and be open-minded to new information coming along so you get all the details. And ultimately, in the end, that you're learning from this. You're learning from each episode or crisis that comes about, and you learn from it and you keep notes of it, and you build off of that rather than sweep it in and be like, this is a one-time thing.
Well, I thought it was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
For BP, it was so disturbing. I mean, because they kept on saying that, we're gonna clean things up, and for people working in the company, I mean, it must have been really hard. Because there's people's lives that were at risk versus it being a completely different company. I'll speak to my experience where I worked for a previous company that was also restaurants, and the leader never really invested in the company. So that company obviously didn't work out in the long run. And versus being in a company where we do everything we can to maintain it and to try to prevent all these things from happening. And from seeing it to happening like in the company where it's like so many risks are there, it's just, in my opinion, it's just the leader more than anything. Not being able to make these decisions and just preparing. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, preparing is key. I know in my previous company that I work for is part of a business continuity committee, and what we did was we pretty much practiced being in crises. So it was a routine thing. Like every quarter, we would go through our earthquake plan, we would go through our flood plan, we'd go through our power outage plan, and we'd go through that and see what would happen, and then we'd make sure that everyone knew what the protocol is. So if it really does happen, it's routine at this point, or at least you have a manual to go to and stuff like that. I mean, we even practice if some bad news was presented, who's gonna call the media, who's going to, address, social media and do all of this. And it really makes you aware of where the holes are, within your company. Cause, I think it was for our power out. We had a major power outage in San Diego a few years ago. And, the only reason why we were able to go through it smoothly is because we had practiced something like this. Similarly for earthquakes though, but we just follow the same routine. You're like, like the VP just said, we're going through, scenario B, everyone pulls the manual, everyone knows what to do, who to contact, and it just went smoothly. And I think those are the kind of things that organizations need to do for.
That's really awesome, because we have, for Starbucks, we have our emergency evacuation kit. So, we're all trained on, okay, this is what you grab if the power goes out or if this happens, and this is our meeting spot. But one of the things that was interesting is because I worked in Colorado and I've worked in Florida now, the need for having that has really come up more in Florida because of hurricanes.
Right.
So making sure that the team knows, I have a plan. I carry a master copy of everyone's emergency contact information, everyone's phone number, all these things, and then really kind of tying it back to that leader and how are we responsible with it, right? Because the wrong type of leader could take that information and do something not good with it. But we have to make sure, and when I train my assistant managers or my shift supervisors, hey, you guys, this is really important. This is what we have to do. But I like that your company, Priscilla, actually walks you through like a mock crisis to know what to do, because we just talk about it and we still have a plan in place, but it's not going through the motions. So, and thankfully I've only had to use it one time, but it's something that, it's not, if it were to happen, it's not innate. It's not my nature to automatically say, okay, this is what we're doing. So that might be an opportunity, even for my company. In Colorado, we had things like, snowstorms and couldn't come to work, but not something like a hurricane where there's mass areas that may have damage and people, can't get to work or their families and things. So that's really interesting that they do kind of a mock run through. That's good.
We started doing it because, a lot of when we had hackers and on the banks and everything, so we would get hundreds and hundreds of calls in one day. Yeah. So we had to start getting in front of the news when there, maybe not even our company's crisis, but the industry's crisis, and how to be proactive on that. So we started, like, hey, if this comes up in the news, we, like all the leadership would contact each other immediately and say, hey, people need to come in early for this, and and that's,
we'll always send out, if there's something in the news for Starbucks, it's hard, right? It's hard to get ahead of things, but we will send out, okay, don't forget, this is your media contact line. We are not to talk to anybody from the news. And all of those phone numbers are in the front of this binder that we use every day. So it is a quick open to, so they really have us prepared for it. And it's nice. It's nice.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. My picture is gone because I think my phone is going on power safe mode. I have it on a battery thing, but it hasn't, I guess, reached its capacity yet. But that's really interesting. And it's awesome that your company does that, Priscilla, that your leader, your supervisor takes that initiative, or the head of, the banks and stuff that have a plan in place. Because I know a lot of companies, either they don't plan ahead because they don't foresee something drastic happening.
Right. Or they just don't have the resources.
Exactly. Like smaller companies. But I think we always have to plan ahead, even on little things. What could go wrong at like for me at events, we didn't know that certain vendors were going to bring in to make hot chocolate, and that takes so much voltage and electricity
Oh.
from our other vendors, and that was like a big, huge sponsor for us. It was in Spanish, the what is it, the chocolate abuelita or whatever. And
Oh, okay, yeah.
yeah, and I had to please them, and I had to, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And every 5 minutes on the radio, I would get called in and say, Maria, we're out of electricity again. And they had a long line of people waiting for their free sample of hot chocolate. You know, so at that moment, I had to work with our electric guy that was still there. And I said, what can we do? You know, if we got to go to Home Depot right now and buy more stuff, then we're going to do it. But if I would have known, you know, this was going to happen, I would have planned ahead. So it's just part of your experiences that, you know, have happened that this time it's not going to happen again. I'm going to plan ahead, and this is maybe what could happen, and I'm going to take care of it, you know, now.
Well, I thought it was interesting too in the book how it talked about when a company has a crisis and then they get through it, but the longer the period of time from that crisis, the more complacent they can become. So making sure that you just, you know, never forget this is what's going on, and by having those systems of checks and balances to make sure that you're staying on top of it so that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, I like, Sarah, how your company, they have it set up where nobody in your store or generally anybody, a regular employee, will talk to the press.
Yeah.
They have a general line for somebody. I mean, that's also important too. You don't want somebody that may have a grudge against, you know, begrudgingly works for you guys. It's just a paycheck. It's not really necessarily completely invested, just going out there and being, you know, a complete idiot and saying something that can completely backfire and start a wildfire through the media. You know,
Absolutely.
that you guys set that up, that they understand, like, you don't say anything.
Well, and it's nice to have that protection too for me as a leader, because I mean, Starbucks is so huge. You know, there's so much going on in the company at any given time. It makes me feel good as a leader to know that someone else is like, I got you. You don't have to talk about this or answer to something that you're not comfortable with. So it's pretty awesome.
We're at 12 minutes. Are we good?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome.